Hello, beautiful people of our digital world. I am so grateful that you have let me come onto your screen for a few minutes. Today, we are continuing our series about the fruit of the Spirit, and today we're talking about goodness. Goodness. Could there be a more general, plain word than goodness? I mean, if you go and ask someone, hey, how are you? And they say good, that really tells you nothing. The other fruit of the Spirit that we've gone through so far joy, patience, kindness those are a little more clear in what they're about. But goodness just feels like eating a piece of white bread. There's not a lot of substance there. So let's dive into this and let's try to see for a few minutes what's really going on here. When this letter to the church in Galatia was read, all those thousands of years ago, they would have heard that term that we translate as goodness as a term that was calling them to go the extra mile. That this term is not static, it's something that's moving, it's taking action. Goodness is a call to essentially take the beliefs that we have learned about Jesus and for this ancient church that they learned about Jesus and put them into action. So, what does that look like? Well, I'm going to bring up the story of the Good Samaritan. This is a story told by Jesus that is essentially about who our neighbor is. And like Jesus does more often than not, he tells this story in a subversive way. And Jesus starts with the story of a man who, through no fault of his own, is beat up on the side of the road and left for dead. This man, like our fruit of the Spirit implies, like goodness is trying to teach us, is in need of someone to go the extra mile, to take action. So enter a priest. You would think that's who this man would want to see. A priest will certainly showcase goodness. Well, in what is a very awkward moment for me as clergy, priest walks on by. And then we have this Levite. And this Levite sees this individual as ritually unclean according to his culture. And they too pass by. Then there's a Samaritan, somebody unliked because of their ethnicity. And the Samaritan cares for this man. So here's what I think Jesus is trying to show us about goodness and neighborliness in the story. And this is human nature. But when we think of who our neighbors are, when we try to answer the question, who is my neighbor? Who do we most naturally desire to show goodness to? We tend to think of people like us. The priest thought of fellow Jews. The Levite would have thought of Levites. But what Jesus is saying here is that we haven't really practiced neighborliness, which seems to be, based on my understanding, a form of goodness. And we haven't practiced goodness until we have cared for those who are different from us. Perhaps even those who we may call enemies. If we're honest, I think this is the type of thinking that's just part of our human nature. To want to just care for people who are like us, who are our tribe, so to speak. And the fruit of the Spirit calls us to lean into the Holy Spirit, take this fruit of goodness, and therefore be intentional about doing something different, because we're not going to do it naturally. This type of goodness does not come natural to us, and it takes the Holy Spirit doing a work in us to produce the fruit, to take that action and live out the fruit of goodness. And, that means our lives are going to get interrupted. So, friends, I pray that you can be interrupted to do goodness this week. that our thinking about who deserves goodness is interrupted. That's a sign that the Holy Spirit is at work. Who do you need to show some goodness to today that perhaps isn't part of your natural tribe? Let the Holy Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit of God who equips this fruit in us, do that work in you today, and the day to come, and the day after that, because we need to be reminded. That's it for today's 5-minute message. I will see you next week, friends. Go in peace, knowing you are loved today and all days. Amen.